I'm here with my friend Laure Jackson. Hello, Anne.
Hello, it's lovely to see you.
For today, you're not in Jersey or elsewhere, but we are here as ever.
We are the beauties of technology, and I'm so thankful for Zoom, and I'm so thankful for the era that we live in, so that I can connect. I mean, I was speaking to an American during the week, who was calling about toileting for her youngster, and it's just so lovely to be able to think. She'd Googled. She said, "I'm really looking for support. I don't know where to go. I found you. I booked a call, and there we are." I'm in the UK, she's in America, and we just had this lovely little 15 minutes of just chatting and seeing what I could do to support her, with the lack of services or with the services that she's got over there. And I just love the fact that we live in this age where we can do this. It is amazing.
Global help with Anne Laure Jackson of Sante in Jersey. It's good.
It's really good.
Now, we have started working through a series of scenarios. Let's put it that way today. We have looked at, and I can't remember beyond the last one, we've looked at festivals because we mentioned purefamilyfestival.com, which is our brand new festival starting next year, which will be, I think you said, a world first Sensory Healthy Festival, which got
Yeah,
very
totally.
excited. That sounds good to me. It's a world first in many ways. And we've also looked at other stuff. And for the life of me, I've got a new notepad and I haven't got details of the previous ones that we talked about. Do you have any recollection of where we've been yet?
Oh, I'm the worst person to ask for memory. I'm the best person who can keep a secret. You can tell me anything. The reason why I won't say it, well, apart from the fact that I'm honest anyway, is the fact that I will forget it. So, yeah, festivals for sure. And I know we started with the Sensory Healthy Church because that was a program that was up and running, and that inspired us to think about all the different aspects of daily life that we will work through, bit by bit. But I think the ones that we've actually spent any any period of time on have been the festivals and the church. We've touched on other things, but
See, across the last nearly 2 years of these, we have touched so many topics, scenarios, struggles, issues from offices to truck cab design right at the start. So in my brain, I know we've spoken of it already, but we're taking a topical look for a while at certain scenarios, which is one thing. Well, I know we've talked about this, I know we've talked about that, and I don't remember what we've talked about in the context of this, which maybe let's just start there because sometimes our brain can retain information, but it's not necessarily timely remembered information. And it's not necessarily a strain, but if you're under a bit of strain for deadlines, memory is so frequently one of the first things not to go, but to get a little bit scrambled.
mm, yeah, yeah, scrambled. Cognitive processing, thinking, executive function. So being able to make decisions well, you need to be in a really good sensory health for that. You need to be in a calm state, but also, yeah, I'm trying to think how it links with memory from that perspective. Now certainly memory. I use it as one of my examples for auditory processing. That when you're in a heightened stress state, like if you're in an interview or something like that, somebody asks you a question. When you're rehearsing for an interview, one of the things that people say is you can just ask them to repeat the question, and that's why we need to ask them to repeat the question because our auditory processing, it hears the words that are spoken, but you need to have a calm and regulated system to be able to process that information, to hear the words, to understand the words, to then have give your brain time to compute a logical answer that you're happy with, and then have the sensory motor coordination to be able to then express with your mouth and with your tongue and your lips everything that you want to communicate. So the very first part of that just gets in the way. Stress comes into the you're nervous. It's an interview. Everything is on a heightened state. The auditory information goes into your ears, but kind of just dissipates in the brain. You're thinking, I know you just said something to me, but I don't know what it is. And that's a big part of memory. That's short-term memory to be able to remember that stuff, to then be able to get your thinking together to then express something that's hopefully sounds somewhat legible, somewhat understandable and reasonable at the end of it all. But yeah, that's yeah, memory. Any of those higher cognitive functions just disappear out of extra arousal in the system, extra stress in the system.
I was thinking about if you're in a canoe and you're paddling along a perfectly still lake, you're able to make pretty good progress without being exhausted. If you throw in just a little bit of wind, now you're having harder to you have to work harder to keep going. Once you've got waves and stuff and it starts to build, all of a sudden your effort, you're being thrown back by the wind and the waves, and you're having to work so much harder, which I would say was possibly a good analogy of trying to retain short term whilst tired, because that is that rush of life, that busyness of life, and it's a bit like the waves and the winds against you. Now you're working twice as hard as you were. So from a sensory health perspective, it's understandable why you'd forget something, because now the waves are here, the stress is here, the wind is pushing back at you, the anxiety, I've got to perform well. I think I shared this a long time ago, but my French A-level teacher, so this is like pre-university, 16 to 18-year-olds, when he was telling me this, but he had gone to university, and I think it was university, and he was doing a French degree oral spoken exam. So he'd spoken French at this point for a minimum of probably 8 or 9 years. And he could not remember some of the most basic words in French, like what's the word for the or and. And you're thinking, as he tells the story, how can you not know the word for and after 8 years of speaking a foreign language? And this is a degree level exam, but it was stress, it was pressure, and he had to get a dictionary and think, what is the word for and in French? I cannot remember. And he looked it up, and it's two little letters, and it's like, that's the word. But that's what stress does. And if you're thinking about sensory health, it makes everything harder.
Oh, absolutely. Everything that should be automatic, so to remember the or whatever it is in French for your and, all the automatic stuff isn't automatic if you've got sensory processing and integration issues. So everything that you do is so much more work. And it feels as though, so going back to your paddling analogy, it feels as though even if to everyone else it looks like a calm day and it looks beautiful and dead easy, for you it's like you just having to concentrate on everything is perceived 10 times like it's a much bigger wave than what everyone else is dealing with. It's a much bigger, much more effort. Everything is of a higher effort level just to get through the day. And that's why we have so many people that are so exhausted with sensory processing integration. So they may look as though they're coping well on the outside, but internally it's yeah, and functionally what their actual output is able to do might not be so good, but internally it's causing an awful lot of hardship on the body and the brain.
Here's an extension of the analogy that I've just thought of. It's a bit like being in a canoe, paddling on a lake, and it looks pretty still and calm. Two people next to each other, one person is making it really easy, it's just gliding across. The other person is really struggling, but we don't know that there's an anchor hanging off the bottom of the canoe and it's dragging along the floor, and thinking, well, what's wrong with them? They look fine, identical boat, they've got same size paddle, it's just as easy a lake. What's their problem? But we don't know the struggles that they're carrying under the surface, because, and we've mentioned this many, many times, a broken arm is in a cast. Broken arm, we can spot that, we can identify it. We will be careful, we'll work around the person, we're not going to bash them, we'll hold a door open for them because we can see physically there is something wrong that they need help with. If you've got sensory health, basically, how are you going to know that someone's got a sensory health issue? Because you can't see it unless they come up with a card and say, I have these issues. We just see somebody else, another person, and we can't identify what's going on under the surface.
Yeah, and I'm loving this week at the moment, not being on island, but I'm in a group, I'm on a camp with some schools and homeschoolers, and it is beautiful to spend some time talking to these, just getting to know and coming alongside these people who didn't know, because they just love and accept it. There's private schools involved here, so there's a different emphasis to the big kind of states, the big government schools, the bigger schools, where this is a lot more intimate, and the way that they know, they just support their children the way that they are. And it's only with me just highlighting or asking a few questions, and they're thinking, maybe there's more to that we should actually explore and go into. They don't realize that there's an anchor holding some of these children back with stuff that needs to be either severed and cut, or wound up, or dealt with in a different way, so that they can help their students or their families thrive that bit better. It's the unseen stuff, and hopefully the more we talk and the more conversations happen, the more awareness and the more help people can get, because there is help, and that's the thing. It's one thing to accept, but there's another thing to be able to be willing to ask for help and to receive help and to know that there is help out there.
I do want to get back onto the topic serious stuff, but a friend of mine the other day said I had a bit of an incident as I was walking along the road today. I was walking along, it's a road I know well. He has visual processing struggles in that he cannot see directly ahead of him. So he has to turn his head to see stuff. So he's walking along the road. He knows the road pretty well. And what he didn't know is that I guess the council had installed a bench of some description, identical in colour to the pavement. So he's walking along quite confidently, then walks straight into this basically bench, hurts his leg quite a bit because it's the same color. And my brain said to Joe, how can this happen? This is 2025. Did somebody not think of painting a red line or something that's a little bit odd to the gray, fluorescent blue, anything that somebody could actually see easily? Because he said, oh, it's my own fault. I wasn't looking. But I thought, well, maybe. But actually, if it's the same color as the ground, how would any of us actually see that? Well, only if we've got good ability to, one, physically see and discern colors, shade, shadow, depth perception, 3D, because then you can see it's moving and you start to recognize, oh, there's a solid object ahead. But then you put in the visual processing struggles after the physical problem needs to be good. Well, now it's more difficult, and you're going to end up as he did with quite a bad scrape on his leg.
Yeah. We had an incident actually yesterday as well. We're doing lots of sports and activities, and the running track that is here isn't flat. It has a few lumps and bumps in it. Normally, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't even think. And I went to the place just to observe, to watch what was going on, and one of the runners. This is 100 meters, it's 100 meters final, and that they're going for it. But because of the slight undulations, that their internal proprioceptive awareness of where their body is and how far they need to press down with their foot to touch the ground appropriately to then go at speed, that was put off because of the slight bump in like there was the real up and down in the middle of the track where the grass and the land had just subsided a little bit, but you couldn't see it, and you can't see it as you're going over it. It's only if you can like go down it and see it that you can just see the bump anyway. Yeah, so his internal processing just was working on a flat surface and didn't have the time to compensate for this, and so he tumbled over, and there was no other reason. It was just like, what happened then? It's just like, have a look at the track, and it's just like, whoa, an internal. So it's those subtleties of what we experience that makes a massive difference to how our bodies function. And for him, there was an expectation that that the road is flat, so therefore I just need to judge the movement of my muscles, the strength of my muscles, the position of my joints. It just needs to stay the same, whereas it doesn't. It needed to adapt slightly to compensate for that bump and that lump in the track, and you can't do that. You can't do that quickly. Some things happen quickly, and we can adapt very quickly, and there are other times we can't. And I thought that was a brilliant example. Not. I mean, it was all right. He got scraped as he rolled over, but yeah.
Thing. Let's move on to camping, because I think in a sense, oddly, this leads nicely into camping, because the classic stereotype, you're in your tent, you've got your sleeping bag, you've got a mat on the floor, and of course fields where you normally camp, they're generally not nice and flat like a piece of glass. You're going to have lumps in there, you're going to have bumps in there, you might even have rocks if you're really unfortunate, or thistles sticking through, and maybe you catch your hand on the plastic sheet off your sleeping bag, and all of a sudden you've got thistles hurting. And this is, I think, probably quite a good stereotypical image of a camping. Now, we've just been recently camping for a 3 Peaks sponsored walk, and we were camping, and night one I did sleep on a mat. It's supposed to be one of those like automatically blowing up bed things where you take the thing off and it sucks the air in. Yeah, that didn't work. So basically a piece of nylon pretty much I was lying on, with air sacs that weren't doing anything at all. So the following night I then thought, I'm going to sleep in my car. I wanted to test it out anyway, so I did. Discovered the airbed was probably a little bit too hard. I got, oddly, more backache from the better sleep in the car on an airbed than I did from the bad sleep that was actually better on the floor outside. That I think is probably most people's stereotype of camping. So let's have a little think in this series of sensory healthy things, sensory healthy camping. And there's my experience just fairly recently. My back is still just a little bit stiff, not from the floor, but from the airbed in the car.
And that's proprioception again, going back to the running track of how our body expects to be able to or how our muscles need to be positioned to relax the most. And it's always an interesting thing, when just to remind people that you don't normally sleep standing up, because you can't. It's a physical impossibility for your brain to switch off when it's got its vestibular system connected to that I am upright and connected to all of the proprioceptive input going through the muscles and the joints to say that I cannot relax. My muscles cannot relax, because if I do, I will go there on the floor, and that won't be very good for me. So it's all of that are all our body positions are quite important, really important in how we sleep, and how often and how easy it is for our bodies to turn when we're not consciously aware of that. It's a subconscious, it's a sensory processing thing, that you will get your receptors within your body saying, oh, I need to turn this way, or I need to turn that way. And if you're in something perhaps like your car, that you may not have had the same freedoms to move, or to just those little movements, that's all our body needs in order to stay rested and not get sore, or not get cramped, or not get stressed in any other way. And it's important to take note of those things to try and enable the proprioceptors, and certainly the vestibular system, to be able to switch off. And that's why we need to have our heads supported somehow. Ideally not the rocks that will come through for the tactile, because we will feel the hardness. And some people love that hardness. Actually, you'll find if your children are sleeping on the floor, or your spouse is sleeping on the floor at home, it could be that they need more registration. They need more awareness of where their body is, and actually sleeping on a harder surface is exactly what they're looking for. So don't be worried if your children like to sleep on the floor at home. And they're probably going to be great when if you go camping, because a harder surface would actually suit them really well.
I was a bit surprised. I was a bit frustrated because I didn't sleep hardly at all on the first night. By night two, I'd wanted to try the car anyway because it's long enough. Can I use this sometimes as an option to a hotel, because I did quite a lot of traveling? Yes, I can. But annoyingly, I didn't let the air out of the airbed, thinking it's probably a bit firm. But I was so tired from the previous night, I got on and went straight out to sleep. Woke up about 7 hours later, thinking, oh, this is going to hurt for the rest of the week, because it was too hard and too stiff. So all the little bobbly bits on the airbed, there was no give, which I know I should have taken the air out, but then you have to live with the frustration. And then I'm awkward and stiff in my back for a few days, and makes me a little bit grouchy. And you can take painkillers maybe, but I don't do very well on those. So then you have to deal with all that stuff. But if you've got a sensory healthy person like I am, basically, then I'm okay. I'll navigate through that as best I can. If you don't, and then you factor in tiredness, stiffness, inability to sort of verbalize that, especially in a child, they're just going to get grouchy. What's wrong with you? Well, they've got a bad back and it's actually a muscle that's hurting, but they can't tell you. So now there's just frustration between the two people thinking, what's wrong with you? Why are you grumpy? Well, they haven't got the words yet to say, well, I'm in a bit of muscle pain now, less likely for a child. But I think it's just the idea of, sometimes we see something, and let's come back to the canoe analogy. We don't see what's going on under the surface. We just see the top of it, and I'm walking around fine, but every so often I'm got a slightly odd gait because now my back's a little bit stiff again. And
yeah, first night I was here, goodness me, the heavens opened, and now I'm in a caravan, so that's a different thing. But I was very, very conscious of and was kept awake because I could hear the rain, I could hear the wind, and I saw lightning. And we have campers in tents, and it was all set off from sensory. I don't need those eye masks, but that's a definite for those who are more sensitive to light, or who need to use the light in the dark to help the hormones and the chemicals within the body go to sleep, and then to wake up again. So those little eye masks are amazing. I didn't need the earplugs, but that probably would have been a good thing to do, because my brain was associating the sounds with, oh, those poor people that are out there, how are they doing? And then the next day, it was really interesting because I was looking around to see could I identify those who had who'd been in the tents. And I heard that one of the tents had collapsed, but I actually couldn't see it on the first day. Now that we're like a few days in, I'm starting to see those who are more tired. It becomes more obvious. So we're very resilient often for one day, maybe 2 days, but if there is increasingly if the environment and what we put into our bodies, what we're feeding ourselves from a sense perspective, the overwhelm can grow. It really can grow over time, and the tiredness and the exhaustion and the frustration and the irritability can grow. So if you are out camping, making sure that you get the right kind of sensory diet and pulling yourself out, or getting the best sensory input you can while you're doing your things.
So the other thing we discovered, we are at the bottom end of this particular camping field, and there was, I want to say a river, but it wasn't. It must have been an old river, but there was a point at which the water fell in this tiny little waterfall and it disappears away. But that sound was quite loud on the first night. And I was lying in bed thinking, if I have to go to the toilet because of the sound of that stupid little miniature waterfall, it's about 6 feet or something into a little puddle. But that was all night long. And as myself and Joe in a tent saying, I don't want to go to the loo, but that sound is making me want to go for a week. But if you do that, you've got to get out of sleeping bag, you've got to get dressed. It's up quite a steep hill into the toilet area, and it's just, can I wait till morning? And you look at your clock thinking it's 1 a.m. Can I go for another 5-6 hours? I don't want to disturb the campsite, but that's another one. The audio frustration of that noise. But by night 2, because I was in the car, which is obviously perfectly soundproofed against the tent, I had none of that noise, and I went straight to sleep. Without the need of a toilet, because now I haven't got the sound of a dripping waterfall all night long, 15 foot away.
Yeah. That's so fascinating how we pay attention to all of the senses that are coming in when you know that you're disturbed or disruptive, and it's what can you do? Can you replace and play something in the background instead of having that waterfall there, or can you make somewhere more soundproofed? That's a good one. That's a great example.
So I was thinking again about our festival next year, which camping is going to be part of that. One of the things that I want to instigate as a rule for all the people is no digital devices for your children that anybody can hear if they're not wearing headphones, because it's one of those things. Oh, just watch this. Well, that might be great, but if you're in a tent, everybody can hear every single movement of you in that tent. Therefore, just saying, well, no one can see. Well, no, but they can hear, and so it's one of the things that will be quite hot. Quite hot on is like if people can hear that, you need to wear headphones, or please turn it off. It doesn't really matter if your child needs that; they need to wear headphones, because in that scenario, you will be getting on everybody's nerves. That then builds agitation and frustration, and anger will eventually grow. So things like noise, we have to be really respectful of other people who we don't know, who won't be tolerant of us, who don't know our child's particular problems. Well, wear headphones, because that solves the problem.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just the visual, because we are in a tent, or because we have that visual boundary, we expect there to be an auditory boundary as well. And it doesn't work like that. Of course it doesn't. Sound just travels. So it is something that needs reminding. It is something that hopefully or if it's not there to begin with, there will grow a sense of community peer pressure for those kind of things, and a reminder that just because you can't see other people outside your tent does not mean that they don't exist. And that's very much, it's such a basic thing that actually, that there are other people out there. And just because they are quiet, that does not mean that they are asleep. It just means that they're being respectful to others and they are being quiet, but they might be struggling to get off to sleep.
It's an interesting point you raise about seeing the visual boundary of a tent, and perhaps forgetting it's basically a thin cotton sheet. Really, it doesn't matter what it's made of. That's basically what we're talking about. So its ability to to stop sound traveling is basically less than zero. In fact, in some ways, it seems to amplify it. I don't know how that works. Perhaps in physics it doesn't, but in real terms, it certainly seems to. But yeah, it was quite hard, which is why I went for the tent the second night. And I thought, well, because it was quite a low tent. Joe and I thought, well, there's 2 people. It's supposed to be a 3-man tent, but no. So in the end, it was like, okay, what we're going to do? I'm going to go and sleep in the car. Joe can have the tent to herself, and maybe she'll have a better sleep. she had just as rubbish a sleep with more room. So we were actually able to interestingly say, well, the issue of lack of sleep is not a lack of room in this occasion. Actually, it's the floor, it's the temperature, it's the noise of the little waterfall 15 foot away, which I can still hear and get irritated by. So here's another one from, I just wonder if I can hold my arm up to the camera. If you look really carefully, I'll tell you what so you can see. I got bitten quite badly by, I don't know if you can see.
Oh no. Ooh.
Red spot. Should be able to just better see. Okay.
That's just
So we were getting bitten quite hard by midges on the first night because there was no wind. By night 2, there was lots of wind. So the midges are obviously, they're quite fragile little things, so they stay away. But I've been finding myself in the last few days remembering camping because I'm scratching, not intentionally, but I've got all these little blood spots on me where I scratched one of the bites because I was getting really wound up and I thought, no, I can master this. I'm going to overcome the frustration and the aggression building in me of these little things trying to bite me because you can feel them biting. It hurts. Now, I thought, I'm going to be fine. And I just ignored them and I was calm. What happened? Well, I've now got blood spots all over my arms. Sometimes being calmer is not wise.
And that is the balance. It's just like, yeah, there is a time and a season for everything. And yeah, that there's a time to take charge of the environment and actually be much more assertive in dealing with what is happening to you and what is happening around you. And then other times it is just relax, just chill, just let it pass. But sometimes you only know after the occasion has passed, though. It's a bit late then, isn't it? Like I should have got those out of the way.
Yeah, well, I just thought, I'm looking like I'm getting more aggressive. I could feel the anger building of these stupid little tiny midges landing on me, trying to bite me. And I thought at one point, I'm going to be calm. I'm going to use calmness to get through this. Most stupid decision I've made. Actually, constantly walking was the best thing you had. Not fast, just gently walking around the field. But eventually you want to sit down, of course, because you're tired. And then we thought, we wish we'd have brought some insect repellent, but you don't. So then you have to manage the situation you're in because you can't necessarily make it better enough to be peaceful and calm. And forcing yourself to be calm made me get even more frustrated.
Yeah, and that's a classic example of what sensory integration, the process that it goes through. So you had something landing on your skin. So you registered it to begin with. So that's the point of registration. Then we get to the point of interpretation, or then you've got to register. Are you overreacting? Are you underreacting to it? You've got to internally analyze what that is all about to then work out how you're going to respond to it. So if you were to recognize, I think this is a creepy crawly, a little insect, I think it's going to bite me, the natural motor response would be to brush it off or to hit it or to do something about it. Your sensory processing and integration at that point, using your cognitive processes, was a decision to go down the calm and we can manage it, which it did work for that period of time, but the consequences
2.5
of
seconds.
There was still that tactile, something was worse on a tactile basis. We actually got the bite. So you've got the feeling of something crawling on your arm and then the interpretation of it, and then thinking you could respond 2 ways. What wasn't factored in from a sensory processing and integration was the end result of it actually landing on you. It wasn't just like a normal fly. It was a midge that was actually going to bite you, which is just like, oh no, it's only now was that final part of the piece really, put together that if you give them a moment, they will take it. You can't afford to do that with those particular insects, whereas others, if it's a wasp, you don't want to turn around and hit it. You have that same tactile feeling. Your hairs are still stimulated in the same way. You've got that light touch going to the brain, which is normally a threat, and that we would deal with it. But we do use our calming strategies for a wasp, but not for midges.
No.
That's right.
If you're going to try and kill a wasp, kill it first time, or yes, it comes back more angry. Being calm at that point isn't going to help you.
No.
But this is camping. I mean, this is the joy of it, being outside, which was beautiful in North Yorkshire. We really enjoyed that. The sound of the waterfall was beautiful until bedtime. And I guess that's the point. Some things are good at certain times.
Yes.
And then when you want to sleep, the sound of the waterfall, not so good. Being in the tent away from the midges, brilliant. Unable to sleep because it's a bit small, not so good. And that's the point. You've got all these different things going on.
Yeah.
And after a week of that, if you've got a crushed tent or whatever, which happens, you're now sleep deprived, which is never great. Your cognitive functions are terrible, and it just gets worse. But of course, when we talk about sensory health, some people, they don't have that nice, gentle build up because they're already coming with a load upon them, which means that they're not starting from point 0 out of 10. They're maybe on an 8 or a 9, and you're building up to that and thinking what's wrong with them. But they've come tired, fed up, frustrated, worried, had an argument in the car, and then all of a sudden they're arriving on a 9 out of 10, and you're on a 0 thinking, well, what's wrong with them? Because again, we can't see what's going on under the surface.
No, that's hard. Yeah, and that's really tough. And for those who flipping it onto the other side, what we do hope for those when we get our help people to process better is that they're the habituation, we call that habituation that kicks in, whereas the sight, the sounds and the sight and the smells of all that newness, the brain slowly starts to process and think, it's not a threat anymore unless it's image. It's not a threat anymore. It's I have processed everything. I recognize it. Yeah, that there's nothing to be afraid of here. And that's when over time sleep can get better because the brain has habituated and got used to those things and isn't as stimulated by those things anymore, because we don't have earplugs in particular. So that's where we do have to, the brain, sometimes we rely on the brain to switch off as much as it possibly can. For some people, they can do that, and for others, there's no chance without help. So yeah, and if we know that the tactile system is just a bit too hard, you would make the effort the next day to lower the pressure in the airbag, or you get more cushions around the rock, or you are accommodating, you are making adaptive responses all the time to try and get the right sensory balance throughout the day and through the night, so that eventually you can get a good night's sleep, and then you can function well during the day.
Of course, you might get tired, and you need to be respectful of other people because maybe they've had a really bad sleep, or you've had a really good sleep. I remember when I was in the Scouts, we go camping. I used to have really good sleeps. So here's my last little bit about camping. One of the things that Joe and I remembered is sleeping bags used to be rectangular, so there was lots of room for your shoulders. And now the new ones, which I'm sure are more efficient and warmer and all that stuff, you kind of have to zip yourself in. So now you can't get your arms out of the sleeping bag because they're kind of stuck in it. And actually, it can feel quite claustrophobic. When you turn over, normally in a duvet, the duvet doesn't tend to move all that much. In a sleeping bag, you turn over and the whole bag turns over, or it prevents you from turning over. So one of the things we were saying is, can we not find an enormous sleeping bag for ourselves? So it mimics more of a duvet and a bed. Because I used to sleep really well, but my sleeping bag, whilst not as warm, was rectangular. And that simple difference meant I could get my arm out. If I wanted to cool down a bit, you bring your arm out, don't you? And then it cools off your body a bit. So you can't do that quite so easily with a modern sleeping bag.
I would love to get involved in sleeping bag design. It's harking back to truck design. Sleeping bags are a real bugbear of mine because of the subtleties of what happens in our body during sleep. And being constrained in a little cocoon, that's not humanity. Yes, for a butterfly, brilliant, but not for, this is, not for us as humans. This is not good. This is not good practice for, or you have to practice in order to be able to sleep in those things. Well, there isn't a natural understanding, which is a bit bizarre, but they understand temperature, I'm sure, much, much better. And yeah, people are more warmer in those things, but there is no movement. You can't move, move your legs or stretch your legs. You're tight. It's yeah. I bought a new sleeping bag and thought, crumbs, I didn't know they were doing this these days. And now, or I tried it once and that. It's just.
Oh, you're still there? Minor internet. Oh, you're back again, I think.
I was going to say you just cleared off all
Internet
Okay.
will be fine. Right. Camping can be great. There's much that we can do. Sometimes we need to plan a little bit better. But if there was one thing we could change, and I would agree with you, sleeping bags, less tight would be good because then we can sleep better. It's not like swaddling a baby. I'm not a baby, I'm a grown person. But yeah, I think sleeping bag design, whilst more clever, I would actually say it's gone downhill quite a lot because, like you say, now you are feeling claustrophobic, and that's not good for, I would say, most people, which is not great. Right, Anne, Lord Jackson, thank you.
Yeah.
We're looking at camping. And camping is good. Sensory healthy camping is good. There are things you can do. Earplugs, eye masks, perhaps. Monitor the pressure of your air bed. Perhaps softer is better. Yeah, there's lots we can do. And watch out for the midges in North Yorkshire, because I'm still itching. Many days on. Right. Anna Jackson, thank you. If you want to get in touch with Anne and get more help, like one of her latest clients in the USA, which is not in Jersey, you can go to pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ, and that will connect you to Anne Lord Jackson and all the amazing support she can give you. Anne, thank you.
Thank you. All the best.